Borneo has always been this mythical island covered in rainforest where the orangutans lived. And they live there and on Sumatra and nowhere else in the world. And everything's fine, right? Wrong. After watching the series Our Planet on Netflix, I learned that the lush green rainforests are replaced by palm oil plantations. And that people who knows about these things are concerned they might actually go extinct.
Actually, the real threat for orangutan is human.
Yeah.
What is going on?
It's really critical endangered items because of palm oil plantations and coal mining.
That made me frustrated. And then my wife hands me her iPad with 4 different volunteer projects working with orangutans. Choose one and do something, she said. So I did, and 2 months later I was on my way to Meydän, going to work as a volunteer for Borneo Orangutan Survival Foundation, or BOSS for short. This series will show some of the things I experienced on that trip. So, I'm in Borneo, and so are the macaques on the roof over my bedroom at around 5 in the morning. And a glorious new day awaits. But first, a little geography lesson. Borneo is the 3rd largest island in the world, just beaten by Greenland and New Guinea. But they don't have orangutans, proboscis monkeys, or mamamonas cooking. Australia, by the way, is considered a continent, so sorry mates, you don't count. Borneo is actually divided between 3 countries: Malaysia, Indonesia and Little Brunei up north. I was staying around here in central Kalimantan. Nobody says Borneo in Indonesia, by the way, they say Kalimantan. Borneo is home to one of the oldest rainforests in the world. And that rainforest is home to several endemic species like elephants, rhinos, leopards and the orangutan. And that was what I and the others were there for. So, after a hearty breakfast of chocolate cereals with ultra milk, I was ready for anything. The first week we were in quarantine because we humans have approximately 97% of our DNA in common with the orangutans. That means any diseases we might have, the orangutans can catch. So, we were making enrichment in a hut outside the main compound. The chicken wire is not to lock us in, even though Chloe and Andri might have been tempted sometimes. They were there to keep the macaques out when we were not there. The day started with Papa Andri teaching us how to cut bamboo to make enrichment for the orangutans. Steve and I happily cut away and managed to get a fairly large heap. But then it was time for inspection. As the mild-mannered Indonesian he is, Andri suggested that maybe one was a bit long. And maybe one more. And possibly also a 3rd one. Then Steve told him to give it to us as men, and Andri very kindly said most of them were too long. So we got to cut even more bamboo. Pro tip, cut them roughly as long as your hand. Then it was time to make porridge. We boiled strange-looking fruits until they were soft. Then we mashed them with a plastic cup and added porridge mix.
Smear test.
Cool.
Yeah, look at that.
That sticks. That sticks.
When the smear test was passed, it was time to get messy. We smeared the porridge on the inside of the bamboo and stuck goodies like raisins and nuts and stuff in the porridge. These are the intrepid volunteers, by the way. Minus Joaquin, who was out on the river watching orangutans. My fellow orangutan savers were Rachel, Amy, Steve, Stephanie, and Luke. When we were finished, we had some help cleaning the table. And then we put the finished bamboo in our cool red wheelbarrow, and Andri took it to the enrichment team and put them in a freezer. They were then handed out to the orangutans at the sanctuary. Even though we couldn't meet our orange cousins yet, we met other real cute animals like this one. A mild-mannered Indonesian who curled up into a ball when frightened. He was so gentle. Before lunch, we went to the info center to see some of the orangutans being fed enrichments through glass windows. Then I bought me a very stylish wristband. And then it was lunch again. I think we all wanted to bring Mama Mona home to cook for us. After lunch, I started my project of earning Madame's trust. The sanctuary had 3 rescue dogs wandering around the compound, but they were scared of us boulets, so I volunteered to go out with leftovers to the dogs. Then it was time to go out in the back of a pickup truck and do some macheting and bring home some leaves. The challenge was to know which of the green leaves in the sea of green leaves that were suitable for the orangutans. Going back, we picked up some enrichment people we found along the way, and then we met the mortal enemy of the orangutan, the palm tree they use to get the palm oil from. This is the fruit they use. So strange. Andri cut some palm fronds we would use to make enrichment for the orangutans. Even stranger. On the way back, we stopped for ice cream, this time a watermelon one. I believe the commercial for this is something along the lines of Indonesian watermelon ice cream. It will change your life forever. Then our day was over. Well, almost. Chloe introduced us to bananagrams that night and I was an instant addict. But abbreviations are not allowed. Try using VET and Chloe will strike you down with furious anger and vengeance. This was the day we were going to try for the summit of Tangkiling hill. We were mentally preparing for the half-hour hike while we made some enrichments from the palm fronds Andri cut yesterday. That was also a fun enrichment to make. Take 1 peanut, place it at the stem, then wrap 2 of the leaves around and around to kind of cocoon it under there, and then tie a knot to keep it there. Repeat with 3 more nuts. Then you take the remaining leaves and tie around the stem so you get a stick-like thing, and you stick raisins, chopped up apricots and other goodies under the leaves. Just remember to wash your hands thoroughly beforehand, because these are not frozen. Then it was time. We were going to conquer the hill. Armed with water bottles, Spotify and a good dose of wanting to be the fastest volunteer group up the hill, we were ready. But first Andri gave us a little introduction to the local plant life.
Really?
Hey!
Oh, wow. Oh, that's so weird. That's cool.
It's really stretchy.
And we have
Banana.
banana tree.
That's banana. Oh, that's the flower of it. Cool.
Waterproof.
Oh, you can
Yeah,
use
you
it
could use
like
that as a cup. Yeah. That'd be cool.
Stinky, spiky tree fruit. This is the tree, durian tree.
Durian tree. Oh god. Oh,
What?
Durian.
that is disgusting.
What is that?
So that's the local fruit only in Asia.
Yeah.
The smell is really strong.
It
Like
smells like sick.
rotten onion or like a.
Okay.
So the fruit is spiky.
Fruit?
Yeah,
Yeah.
they are
Okay.
really horrible.
Huh.
Who the hell let this person on the flight with a durian?
Smells like smelly
like-
feet or eggy farts.
Do they use it for something?
Disgusting.
They eat it.
Yeah. I hate it. How?
But they're brainwashed from early age, right?
Most of the time when you check into a hotel here, they'll be like, you can't eat the
Oh,
Really? Yeah.
Then we passed the steps leading up the hill and went to a large rock with some small houses and a lizard.
What were we looking at? Oh, cool. Hey, little thing. You're a cool one.
According to legend, this rock was formed after a woman married her long-lost son that returned. She didn't know it was him until she saw a birthmark, but the gods were not pleased.
And but he got the bless for him and he got the son. So if you have a dream, you should pray it here. And if your dream come true, you should feeding the son.
The small houses were built to honor the ancestors and were frequently stocked with bottles, cigarettes and other stuff you could need in the afterlife.
Yeah, regular milk for
If you needed help to fulfill your wishes, you could come with an offering to your ancestors and tell them of your dream. If the dream came true, you would tie a yellow cloth to the house. You can see these houses all around. We even had one near the mess at the sanctuary. It was behind bars because of the macaques.
Chilic means small, reboot means wind, because he can travel really fast. Like people say
One
that
house
he
was
can
really
teleportation.
special, and that was the house of Chilic Rivut.
Travel
Not the airport, but the guy the airport is named after. Chilic Rivut was Dayak, like Andri. The Dayaks are the indigenous people of Borneo. Chilic Rivut was a journalist, but had to work for the Japanese occupiers during World War II. After World War II, he fought for Indonesian control over Borneo. Quick history lesson. Borneo was colonized by the British and the Dutch around the 1800s, with the island roughly divided by the borders that exist today. The British ruled the top except Brunei and the Dutch the south. After World War II, the Dutch briefly tried to regain control over southern Borneo, but they failed. Legend has it that Chilic Rivut would come to this site, pray at this house for help, and he would gain magic powers that would take him to every single Dayak tribe within 24 hours, so that he could convince them of supporting the Indonesian cause. He later became the first governor of Central Kalimantan. Up some steps that were not quite high enough for walking comfort, Andri took us to this fantastic stone temple. I know nothing about the temple except that it was breathtaking.
What's this? Oh, wow.
For a Norwegian, it is quite unnerving to see the swastika, but it was also a bit comforting to see it in its original use, a symbol of prosperity and well-being at a place of worship. Then it was time. We would make a dash for the summit. Being a man from the land of fjords and mountains, I thought this would be easy peasy. What I did not take into account was the heat and humidity and the wildly not even height of the steps and the really steep inclination of the hill and my own, shall we say, non-existent workout regime. So the trip was both literally and figuratively breathtaking. Luckily, there were a lot of resting places along the way, and even a couple of small shops.
Why do they look unaffected?
Thanks.
One of the resting places had actual bats flying in a cave. How cool is that?
I'm really going to show you a cold beer when we're lost. That was very cold beer.
That's not a house cat.
Amy, Rachel and me were going for a record, so we just walked right past the ladder to the summit itself.
Oh, there's a ladder there. You can do it, Andre.
After climbing the ladder, we saw what felt like the whole of Borneo. It was worth every drop of sweat, and we did it in 27 minutes, which was the fastest time of all of the volunteer groups. Not that it matters, but just laying it out there.
Oh, wow.
27.
After enjoying the view and catching our breaths, we started raiding the top for offerings.
Do we take bottles standing on that?
Yeah.
Yeah, those as well.
Oh, yeah? Okay.
Chloe and Andri had brought some trash bags because the place was littered with plastic bottles and whatnot.
That's a hell of an offering.
Yeah. Let him have some more different offerings, some fresh offerings.
We filled the bags we had and made our way down. And now the sun was setting. I can't even begin to describe how beautiful it was. Then we went back on the back of a pickup truck. That night I slept really sound, all the way till around 5 in the morning, but that's for the next episode. Next time I spin a plastic bag full of iced tea. Andri kills a melon. And we see houses on the water.